Many people don't know what's possible. A food forest style garden right in the middle of Providence, Rhode Island. I have been growing food in this style for the past 6 years, and this is the second site that I've worked on, actually the third if you include a school where I was volunteering. What I'm in the process of doing, is using food forest techniques to construct a yard that takes relatively little maintenance to keep going and produces lots and lots of food. So I'm going to give you a tour today of what I've got so far. I've been working on this since 2018, and we've made a lot of progress. Some of the trees are still small, but a lot of the guilds are starting to come together, and that is really exciting. So I want to introduce you to a few of them today. We'll do a little bit more of this in later sessions, but for right now, let's get started. What we're looking at right here is my front yard, and you can see creeping thyme growing in with columbine. We've got an Asian chestnut that's just starting to really come up, and we've got blueberry bush that isn't producing anything this year. In here we've got a ground cover of Alpine Strawberries, and this is the Attila variety, which I think it's called that because it really is an invader. It will take over a space. It has these brilliant runners that just spread the strawberries very, very quickly. So this is after about 3 years. I started with a few of these Alpine strawberry plants out here, and as you can see, they've really spread out. In these spaces, I've also got a beach plum. I've got a few more that are growing from seed here, as you can see, but that one right there was transplanted. We've got honey berries coming right along. I've got hosta over here, which is edible, and these are starting to spread out. This is a new addition last year. And we've got my two pawpaws, my two front yard pawpaws. I've got several in other places. Now you can see I've interspersed these other beds that have annuals in them. So in here you've got Swiss chard, you've got some dino kale, and these are things that I recently put out probably earlier this week, I guess. And then you've got a string trellis here. It's got some beans growing up it. As the season goes along, you're going to see a whole lot more growing in this garden, and I'll get back to that in a few more episodes. There will also be a trellis over this area, which will have other beans growing on it. Right along the street here, you see I've got strawberries and garlic and some peas and dahlias all mixed in. Over here we have a new planting that is Gummy Berries, and so I just put that in this spring. I haven't even gotten a ground cover in here, but I've got a nice thick layer of mulch. And we've got some tomato plants that are mixed in with other things, and as you can see, they're trellised off of this linden tree, which is in the process of starting to put out some edible flowers. So you'll see those coming out pretty soon. And here you have ground nuts mixed in with Jerusalem artichokes. This gets to be a real mess in the spring, but I do like Jerusalem artichokes, and I try to keep everything. Actually, it gets to be a real mess later in the summer, but I try to keep everything, all the Jerusalem artichokes, in one place and in a place that's not going to interfere with other stuff because they tend to be a little bit invasive. Good morning. Over here we have a fig that I started last year just from cutting that I made off of my other fig tree, and it's got violets around it that are sort of filling in as a ground cover. We've got a sunflower growing up here, and several actually tree lilies that are not edible. It's one of the few things that I plant that is not edible. It's in honor of my dad, who absolutely loved his tree lilies. And over here we've got some lilacs, which came with the house. I love them. There's nothing that I do with them edible wise, but they're absolutely beautiful in the spring. So they're in the process of dying back. Now in here you also have a blueberry bush. You've got daylilies, and as you can see, another tomato and some ground cover stuff that's coming in. Now this is a tricky spot, obviously, because it's underneath the bush. I need to add a little bit more mulch under here. I just haven't gotten around to it. So here in the backyard, we have Maru, the garden cat. I haven't quite got my watering system set up, but I do put buckets underneath the downspouts to collect extra water. I'm going to have rain barrels as time goes forward. I just haven't gotten around to that yet. Here are my worm bins. These are worms hard at work. It's about as far as I go with respect to livestock, but I'll give you a quick peek in here. Lots and lots going on here. These guys are doing a terrific job. This, just a couple of weeks ago, this was kitchen scraps. It's now being turned into compost, and I will be able to liquefy that and put that on my gardens very soon. I've got another one right here. Got one just waiting to start up down there. I'll probably be able to split the top one into that later on this week. Now here we've got kind of interspersed some annuals and perennials. So I do like to grow some annuals, but what you see mostly here right now is the perennials. And so this is why I call this food forest style gardening, because a lot of these things are working together to produce food. You see that you've got some ground cover plants, you've got mint, you've got violets again, then you've got the kind of what will eventually be more of about as tall as I will get for my overstory. I'm not really going to have much of an overstory here though. So that is a sweet birch right there. You've got another pawpaw right here. We've got trellises which will have squash and beans growing on them this summer. They're planted, but they're still very small. Asian pears and apples along the back, and these I'm kind of doing a makeshift espalier with, trying to keep those kind of flat against the back of the garden. While in here you've got things like sea kale, which is in the process of going to flower and eventually to seed, and so I'll have some seeds of that to share with people. I've got a number of kinds of sea kale, and I've expanded that this year, a number of different genetics, and hopefully my seeds will be a little bit more genetically diverse in the future. And this is a kaleidoscopic, homesteader's kaleidoscopic perennial kale grex. I've got a number of those that are a lot like collards, but they're very, very diverse, very different from plant to plant. We've got, in here we've got the Egyptian onions, the walking onions. As you can see, there's an Asian pear back there that's in the process of kind of getting trained for flattening out against the back of the garden. More sea kale. Actually, that one's an apple. I apologize. This one's an Asian pear, and here's an apple. And this is a Liberty apple. It already has several apples on it after only a couple of years, so I'm very pleased with that. More rhubarb, more sea kale. Back here you've got a fig tree, which is doing pretty well. We've already got figs coming on it. This is only the end of May, and as you can see, they're not ripe yet, but they're filling out pretty nicely. Not too many of the spring ones. We'll get a much bigger harvest in the fall. And here you've got rue, you've got an artichoke, which it's not the best artichoke in the world, but I think I need to expand my artichoke collection. So if anybody's got some suggestions for artichokes that will do well in cooler climates. Here's some marjoram. We've got French tarragon, more of those perennial kale colored type things. And now here's where I'm kind of, this is a lot of annuals that have yet to really spring up. We've got more and a different variety actually of Alpine strawberries here. You can see we've got onions and walking onions and garlic and stuff mixed in here. This is a hardy pomegranate, which is coming back from the roots this year because it didn't quite make it. The branches didn't make it through a very cold winter, but now it is on its way back to shooting up there, and we'll see if we get any flowers off of it this year. I'd really love to get some pomegranates, but I'm not that optimistic given the climate. It's kind of pushing the boundaries of my 6B hardiness zone here. And so you can see I've got tomatoes, and I'm pretty happy with the way my tomatoes came out. I planted these actually inside in January, and they have really shot up. I had to actually trim them back because they were getting a little too big, but I think they're going to do really well this summer. We will see. Angelica. These are sweet potatoes. I'm actually hardening them off in place, and this is what I do sometimes to harden off things that I'd rather just put in the ground soon, is I'll give them a little bit of a sun shield that they eventually will grow over or out of. I'll yank that up in a couple of weeks and expose them to full sunlight once they've started to reach out into the sun themselves. A couple more tomato plants. We have a garden sorrel here that is already bolting, which is fine. And we have here a mulberry. This is an Illinois ever-bearing mulberry, and this is the first year that I've seen this thing set fruit like this. So this is going to be really exciting to see all of these mulberries and finally get a good taste of what these Illinois ever-bearing mulberries taste like. So as you can see, we've got some other sort of ground covers and stuff. Yarrow right there. Just a number of different things. And these things are, many of them, like I say, are all working together. We've got, here is fennel. This is a fennel that I got from Baker Creek, and I actually just let this self-seed, but not too much. I try to keep it from going too crazy because fennel can really go crazy, kind of like dill. These are things that will take over your garden if you're not careful enough. But anyway, I do snack on that as I walk through the garden, and find it really a nice treat. So it's a bit of a mess out here. I know you can see recycling bins and stuff hanging around that have some soil in it, things that I've planted in before and may get to planting in again this year. That is what I've developed so far, and I'm in the process of kind of expanding everything. Every year I expand a little bit, but I try not to go too overboard. I want to make sure that I don't plant anything that I can't take care of. So every year something new gets added, and every year this grows a little bit, and the perennials get a little bit bigger, more mature, start producing even more fruit, and every year there's something new going in. So that is the progress with my food forest style gardening. And in the city, it's not going to be quite as foresty as it might be if you have a little bit more space, but it is still done in a food forest style. You've got the ground cover layers, you've got things that go under the ground, you've got the low herbaceous tier, and then you've got your bushes, your fruiting bushes, your berry bushes. So the kind of medium understory plants, and I don't really get into too much of the overstory plants here. But and I also have things in pots, and we've got a few other random things. I've got lettuces that I didn't even show you, and some other potted stuff. But it's kind of so many things that it's difficult to show in everything in one video. But stick with me, check out some of my other videos, see some of the other things that I'm doing, and I think you might get inspired for building your own food forest style gardens in your own backyard. Hope to see you again soon. Please subscribe, give me the thumbs up, and check out the foodforestgardenclub.org. Take care.